I have been fascinated with Japanese gardens for many years, and I've wanted to see a real Japanese garden all my life. What draws me to them is the skill and mindset of those who create them. I find so much beauty in structure and organizations. Our gardens are so much a reflection of ourselves and who we are. I came to absorb the Japanese culture through their gardens. I'm looking forward to seeing how they use plants, how their people relate to plants, and what is most important to them. Japanese gardens, like all gardens, give us moments of beauty not found anywhere else on earth. The gardens of Japan were the reason I came to this island country, and the world-famous Saihoji Moss Garden was at the top of my list. Saihoji is renowned and revered for the beauty of its moss garden and the autumn leaf viewing season. Japan recognizes 5 seasons, which are winter, spring, summer, fall, and the rainy season, which occurs the last 2 weeks in June. In earlier times, before Western influences, the Japanese divided up their seasons using an ancient Japanese almanac. This almanac divided their seasonal calendar into an amazing 72 microseasons. The Kyoto Journal of Japan, April 25, 2023, has a great article describing it by Mr. Mark Hovain. In it, he outlines the divisions related to astronomical happenings, like the equinox, or to events related to agriculture, like the time of the cherry blossom. Imagine how in tune to nature the early Japanese were using this almanac. I decided to time my visit to Japan in mid-November, which is considered a bit early for the most brilliant fall displays in Kyoto. But no matter, I knew the garden held special moments for me. Saihoji is a classically designed Japanese stroll garden. It is a contemplative garden that lends itself to walking meditation. It was designed in the 14th century by Moso Soseki, who is also known as Moso Koshi. He is most famous as the originator of gravel and stone gardens in Japan called Kari Sansui. Kari Sansui means dry landscape. The Kari Sansui stone garden, designed by Moso Soseki, is not open to the public, which was a great disappointment. Moso Soseki designed the pond area using the Japanese kanji for the heart. A kanji is a Japanese language character representing words that express an idea. The heart kanji reflects the feelings and connection between the mind, heart, and spirit. If you fly a drone over the garden, the ponds are shaped and look like this. The garden map includes a prayer to enjoy the moment, refrain from conversation, and walk around the garden in peace and quiet. Everyone honored that. Part of what made that easy is that the moss itself acts as an insulator, and the atmosphere and feel of the entire garden are naturally hushed. Saihoji uses water from 2 natural springs. One of them has been producing fresh water for over 1,000 years. I was totally enchanted by the deeply cracked mossy rills. I wondered if they were a feat of human engineering or a matter of just letting nature decide its pathways. I decided a bit of both was the answer. The bottoms were sandy with a few scattered rock. Taking care of these must be a joy and also a daily mission. The water was clean, the mosses and tiny plants left to grow along the rills were enchanting, and the air was amazingly fresh. Everything just absolutely beautiful. Moss is an ancient plant that dates back millions of years. The moss at Saihoji is not nearly so old, dating back to the 19th century when the original white sand and pine garden fell into disrepair. This led to moss taking over the sand. Moss loves this non-nutrient sand base and gets nutrients from the air and humidity. It never needs fertilizer. It took 100 years for the moss completely to cover the garden as we see it today. The Japanese were wise to see the benefits of using natural occurring moss. The humid and damp growing conditions needed for moss are perfect in Japan. Moss has no roots and no flowers. It absorbs nutrients and moisture through stems and leaves and reproduces with spores. It uses rhizoids, a root-like filament, to anchor itself. There are several types of moss I was able to identify using an ebook named Japanese Moss from japanesegardens.jp. The first thing I learned is that koki or goki means moss. Sugi koki is found worldwide and tolerates dry sandy soil. It looks like baby pine trees standing straight up. Suna koki can grow on rock and does not mind a sun exposure. It looks like individual green stars. Shiraga koki is the bumpy cushion moss around the trunks of the trees. Suji koki is a feather-like moss that covers tree stumps. There are at least 100 more types of mosses that grow at Saihoji. To identify them would require a microlens, a degree in bryophytes, and knees better than I have. Lichen are not moss. They are a combination of fungus and algae. The fungus protects the algae from dehydration, and the algae has the ability to photosynthesize. Lichens are a pioneer species, meaning they inhabit surfaces first. In this way, it enables the moss to gain a foothold in the cracks of the lichen. The photos show one rock covered with moss in the background. This took a few years to develop. The foreground rock is covered with lichen. If the weather is conducive to moss taking over, moss will eventually cover the foreground stone. Maybe one of my grandchildren will someday go to Japan and see this lichen-covered rock with a bit of moss on it. Many of the Japanese maple trees at Saihoji are from the genus Acer and the species Palmatum. They are native to Japan and are grown everywhere, with dappled sunlight being the ideal. They also grow them as bonsai attached to rock islands in the ponds. Most of the trees in Saihoji Garden are Japanese cedar, or Cryptomeria japonica, a beautiful native evergreen conifer known in Japan as suji. It is the national tree of Japan and found at most Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines. Suji trees represent longevity, virtue, and faith. Somewhat recently, after the 2011 earthquake and tsunami, it has become known as a tree of hope and represents the resilience of the people of Japan in the face of devastating natural and human-caused disasters. This tree is a suji tree marked as sacred. The rope around the tree is called a seminawa. A seminawa marked tree has special attributes that make it sacred. For example, this tree may be over 100 years old and hold kami, or spirits. This tree also has an unusual trunk, another sign of a sacred tree. If you look closely, you can see that it is not one single trunk, but two trunks that have met and combined in youth. It's caused by the wind rubbing the bark off the trees and exposing the cambium layer of each tree. The trees meet and grow together. I find it interesting that the tree is honored as it would be in the Shinto religion and also recognized at a Buddhist temple. Saihoji Temple employs a gardening team for garden maintenance. These men have been together for many years and work only at the temple garden. Theirs is a daunting job. Although Japanese gardens may look easy to maintain, they are not. Keeping the moss in top condition requires daily attention. Broom work is needed in all seasons, but especially in the fall. Moss will overtake stone walls and they need to be scraped and brushed off. The moss itself requires constant weeding. The pruning of trees and shrubs is an art, taking many years to learn. The garden team is one of the reasons this garden has clear running water and just enough sunlight and shadow to grow the mosses and trees. In my mind, they have done an outstanding job. Here is a last look at the moss garden of Saihoji. It was all that I had hoped it would be, and a beautiful way to start my garden journey in Japan. Enjoy the quiet, and thank you for watching.